Senate Judiciary C this morning. This is Senator Jay Morris. This is a constitutional amendment that we have changed our tune on since talking to Jeff Wittenbrink last week.
Yes, this is extremely important, Danielle, extremely important. This bill, if it passes, now it's a constitutional amendment, so if 2/3 of the legislature votes to send it to the people, it'll go to the people on a November ballot. And what it's going to basically do is it would allow the governor to recommend that any sitting DA or judge in the state of Louisiana be suspended to start with if he believes that they've committed any kind of malfeasance or incompetence. These are very, very vague terms, very difficult to define, and you could really drive a truck through these terms. So if the governor comes to the conclusion that perhaps one of his political enemies has committed malfeasance or is incompetent, he can recommend to the state Senate that that DA or that judge be suspended or removed. And once that occurs, the Senate then votes on whether to affirm that recommendation. It requires a 2/3 vote to affirm it. But you know what's interesting about this, Danielle? The Senate can make that vote on a written ballot. It's not a public vote in the Senate for the world to see where they press their buttons and we get to see who's voting to remove or suspend a sitting DA who was elected by the people or a sitting judge who was elected by the people. Why would they do that? Why would the state Senate not want to reveal to the public how they're voting on the governor's recommendation? Is it possible that they're falling in line with the governor and that perhaps there are not legitimate grounds to remove this locally elected DA or this judge and they don't want to have their fingerprints on it? Is that possible? That's a huge red flag to me. So assume they do the written ballot vote. They would immediately, that 2/3 of the Senate would remove the DA or the judge for 6 months. It would be a suspension and a temporary suspension. And during that 6-month period, any senator can make a motion for permanent removal. So if a senator makes a motion to permanently remove at that point, a majority of the Senate would approve. And at that point, they have to have an evidentiary hearing, a trial, open public on the merits. Then after all the evidence is in, the Senate would vote on whether to permanently remove that official from office, and that would require a 2/3 vote. So there's so many problems with this that it's almost impossible to describe them. First of all, the governor has enormous power over the state Senate. Maybe we would consider supporting something like this if the state Senate exercised true independence, true oversight over the executive branch that it's constitutionally charged to do, instead of being the governor's whipping post, which basically this is a recipe for political vendettas of the governor being rubber stamped by our state Senate because they don't have any backbone and they're essentially going to do what the governor tells them to do. Secondly, why are they voting in secret to suspend a judge or a DA? And why are they doing this before? Why are they even suspending on an interim basis an elected official before they have a trial on the merits to see what the evidence is against the elected official? It's absolutely ridiculous that a governor makes a recommendation and says, here's what I think, and they have a vote. And if 2/3 say, yeah, governor, he's gone, and they don't even come back until later to have a trial on the merits to see what the real proof is.
And Chris,
this is horrible. There's no doubt in my mind that Governor Landry is behind this.
Well, regardless of who's behind it, we can definitely, when we looked at this on its face, it seems good because we know there are DAs who are not enforcing the law. We know there are prosecutors who are letting criminals roam free. However, there is a mechanism for dealing with that, and it is called impeachment. So if our legislature would just use the powers it already has, it could take care of this situation without involving the governor. Imagine that.
Absolutely. Danielle, you're exactly right. There is a legislative statutory mechanism in place whereby the legislature can handle this. That's why I believe the governor is probably behind it. because it gives him an enormous amount of power. Very dangerous. I agree with you, Danielle, that we do have local officials, judges and DAs, who are not doing their jobs. This is not the solution to it.
No, and this is another. This is just another example, Chris, of the legislature giving up its right to govern in a way that it is constitutionally set up to do.
Exactly. So not only will the legislature not do its job independently, with the problem of DAs and judges who are not enforcing the law, who are committing malfeasance, whatever the case, they want to hide their vote when the governor makes a recommendation about whether someone should be suspended or removed. Why are they doing this on a secret ballot?
The same reason they don't publicize their committee votes, Chris.
Exactly. It's obnoxious.
It's obnoxious.